Welcome back, everyone. I would hope to begin this session in 1 minute if you'd like to take your seats. Thank you. Well, welcome back. I'd like to begin the session. I hope you had a useful and productive lunchtime. What I'd like to do is begin by going through some CRPs that we have available. A couple of general points from me on CRPs. Talking to the Secretariat for sessions tomorrow and beyond, they hope to be able to produce a list of CRPs that will be then projected on the screen as we go through them sequentially. Secretariat, do you want to make any announcement?
Thank you, Chair. Just to note that there are 3 new CRPs available. 27.7.3 on the oceanic white-tipped shark, 28.2 the action plan for land birds in the African-Eurasian region, and 28.7 on the Saker falcon. And I'm told that there are probably another 10 that should be finished by the end of this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Before we look at the CRPs we have before us this afternoon, looking back this morning, we perhaps went a bit too fast on a couple. There are very simple points that we still need to adopt. For a start, in relation to CRP 20 on the Atlas of Animal Migration, we didn't take note of the Atlas itself, which is included in document 20, and I'd like to suggest that we do that now. I think it's a very straightforward agreement to take note of the Atlas of Animal Migration. We can do that now. Thank you very much. It is indeed an excellent initiative. And then similarly, when we recommended adoption of CRP 27.1.2, we did not take note of the report on fish aggregation devices in Annex 1 of document 27.1.2 Rev 1. And again, if we could do that now, which was a technical document underpinning the recommendation. Thank you all very much indeed for that. We then have a number of CRPs, and I will take these in numerical order. So hopefully you've had time to look at these and to consult as necessary. First of all, if we could turn to CRP 24 on the review mechanism and national legislation programme. CRP 24 includes comments from the European Union and Madagascar. Unfortunately, due to a translation error, we do need to revise decision 14AA in paragraph G, and I'll just read out the suggested change. So under G, we suggest deleting strengthen the national legislation programme in line with the national legislation project at the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, CITES, and the Sustainable Wildlife Management, SWM, Programme Committee, and enhance the collaboration with existing initiatives facilitating national legislative review, such as the CITES National Legislation Project and the Sustainable Wildlife. Sorry, I'll start that again. I've deleted too much. So we would delete the first 3 lines, which is strengthen the national legislation programme in line with the national legislation project in the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, CITES, and the Sustainable Wildlife Management, SWM, programme. And then we would add text to replace that, which is continue and enhance the collaboration with existing initiatives facilitating national legislative review, such as CITES National Legislation Project and the Sustainable Wildlife Management Programme. And that's a translation correction. It's not a change in substance, if we can. In addition to, in document 24, asks the COW to delete decisions 13.20 and 13.23. Can I open the floor for comments and for your approval? Thank you. European Union, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Would it be possible to read the Madagascar text once more so we can make sure that there's no problem? Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. So essentially we would delete the first 3 lines of paragraph G, and we would replace that with continue and enhance the collaboration with existing initiatives facilitating national legislative review, such as the CITES National Legislation Project and the Sustainable Wildlife Management Programme. Thank you, European Union. If there are no other requests for the floor, then I would like to suggest that we can recommend CRP 24 for adoption. Oh, thank you. United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the Section 1A paragraph 3 amendments proposed by the EU, we agree that these changes are acceptable, but for the sake of consistency, we think information and should be retained, as Section 1C para 3 says, information and communications between the Secretariat and individual parties on specific information matters shall be treated as confidential unless the party concerned waives the confidentiality.
Thank you, UK. I wonder if you could just repeat that for the Secretariat so they get it absolutely right.
Certainly. So where there's a suggestion that information and is removed in Section 1A para 3, we think that that should be retained for consistency's sake.
Thank you, United Kingdom. We'll just take a moment to make sure we've got that correct. Sorry, United Kingdom, the Secretariat are having trouble identifying paragraph 1A. We've got paragraph 1, but I'm not sure they've found the A section in it. I don't know if you could indicate possibly by page just so we can get it. Is it towards the foot of page 2?
Can you just bear with me, please?
UK, let me try and help. I think it may be the section under the series of bullet points, Roman 8, and then the paragraph following that, and I think it may be the end of the second line. Yeah, thank you. So the suggestion is to retain information and at the end of that line. With these two small technical changes, I think I would call them. I will move for recommendation in a moment. We've got European Union and then AWA, please.
Yes, apologies, Chair, but it's unclear at the end of which line UK would like to retain information. So if you could point that out, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, EU. If you look at the document, there are 8 Roman numerals under A. There are a list, and then the paragraph below that. So it would be at the end of the second line of that paragraph. What I'll do is take a comment from AWA and then come back to this. If we need to, we'll move on and take other CRPs and then come back. AWA, please. Sorry, AWA, did you want to make an intervention? What I'll do while we're sorting that, I think, is I'll move on to another CRP because it makes it a little bit of time to find out the precise wording and the location. So I'll come back to CRP 24 once we're ready. Can I move us on then to CRP 27.2.2, Rev 2? Sorry, excuse me. I'm sorry, let me go first to document 26, Rev 1, which is on the definition of rain state and vagrant that went to the institutional and cross-cutting issues working group. As you heard this morning from the report from the working group, they have agreed the following wording, which is a very useful statement. The statement reads, the Conference of the Parties appreciated the work undertaken by the Scientific Council on the implementation of Decision 13.140 and noted the work contained in the document UNEP CMS COP14 Doc 26 Rev 1, implementation of Decision 13.140, guidance on the use of the term vagrant. The text that I've read out will be recorded in the report of COP14 this meeting. Can we recommend this language to the COP for inclusion in the report, please? Thank you very much for that, and thank you for the working group for all the discussions that you've had over recent days, weeks, and indeed over the triennium. What I will do on that, just for completeness, is give it a bang so that there is no doubt we have concluded that matter. Thank you very much. Can we then move on to CRP 27.2.2, Rev 2 on marine noise? This was produced by the Aquatic Working Group, and in addition, document 27.2.2, Rev 2, asks us to recommend taking note of the report in Annex 1 and deleting decisions 13.58 to 13.60. Could I ask if there are any comments on the revision document, please? If there are no comments, can we then recommend for adoption? And that's Doc 27.2.2, Rev 2. See no comments, so recommended. Can we then move on to CRP 27.4.2 on important shark and ray areas? This also arose from the work of the Aquatic Working Group. It includes a draft resolution and draft decisions. In addition, we're asked to adopt criteria included in Annex 3 of the paper of the original document, document 27.4.2, Rev 1. Again, can I open the floor for any comments? If there are no comments, can we recommend CRP 27.2.2 Rev 2 on marine noise for adoption, please? We can indeed. So adopt. Can we then move on to CRP 27.4.2 on important shark and ray areas? Sorry, just done that one. Yeah, sorry, it's getting a long day already. Sorry, too early. Can we move on to CRP 27.4.3 Rev 1 on the conservation and sustainable management of seagrass ecosystems? Again, this comes from the Aquatic Working Group, which has been very productive overall. It includes a draft resolution and draft decision. Again, if I could open the floor for comments, please. And if there are no comments, can we then take the CRP 27.4.3 Rev 1 on the conservation and sustainable management of seagrass ecosystems and recommend for adoption? So, adopted. Thank you very much. We then move on to CRP 27.5.1 on conservation priorities for cetaceans. Again, this comes to us from the Aquatic, sorry, I see EU and then Australia. EU, please.
Yes, excuse me, Chair. We had raised our flag concerning the previous document. So we have a very minor correction to suggest, and that is the last, the penultimate paragraph in the decision, in the resolution, where it says, recalling relevant international obligations, including those in the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, especially targets 2 and 3, the Paris Agreement, etc. The EU proposed to add a reference to target 1, which is not integrated. I thank you.
Thank you, EU. So we would read biodiversity framework, comma, especially targets 1, 2 and 3. Thank you. Australia?
Thank you, Chair. I had an intervention on CRP 27.5.1, the Indigenous, what was it, communities, I can't remember what it's called now, but what we wanted to say was that we've noticed that the term Indigenous peoples and local communities is sometimes capitalised, sometimes not. So, for example, in this CRP, in OP, in operational paragraph 5A, it's all lowercase, and then in CRP 30.2.3, Indigenous peoples is capitalised and local communities is lowercase. So we just wanted to request that the Secretariat conduct a sort of a harmonisation exercise and reviewed them, all the CRPs, to ensure the correct formulation is used throughout. Thank you.
Thank you, Australia, and Secretariat will undertake that check. Thank you. Thank you. Let's confirm on CRP 27.4.3 Rev 1 on conservation and sustainable management of seagrass ecosystems. As suggested by the EU, we will add targets 1 into the paragraph dealing with targets 1, 2 and 3, which is the penultimate paragraph in the resolution. With that change, can we then recommend for adoption? So adopted. Thank you. Can we then move on to CRP 27.5.1, Rev 1 on the conservation priorities for cetaceans. This also comes from the Aquatic Working Group and includes a draft resolution and draft decisions. In addition, document 27.5.1 asks us to take note of the report found in the INF 27.5.1 and in Annex 1 of document 27.51. In addition, it asks us to delete decisions 13.80 to 13.85 and repeal resolution 10.15 Rev COP14. Can I open the floor for any comments? I don't see any comments, and so can we recommend to take note of these reports, delete the decisions and recommend for adoption? Can indeed. Thank you very much. We then move on to CRP 27.5.3 on sirenians, pinnipeds and otters. This includes a number of draft decisions. Document 27.5.3 also asks us to consider deletion of decisions 13.55, 13.56A, 13.81A to B and 13.82A. Again, can I open the floor for comments? If there are no comments, can we recommend for adoption? We can indeed. So adopted. Can we then move on to CRP 27.6.1 on marine turtles? This includes a number of draft decisions for our consideration. Document 27.61 also asks us to delete decisions 13.69 and 13.70. Again, any comments? Brazil, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have a brief comment. Brazil welcomes document 27.6 on marine turtles, and as a party to the Inter-American Sea Turtle Convention, Brazil acknowledges the importance for CMS to work in close partnership with the Sea Turtle Convention Secretariat, who is, for the first time, the Secretary of this convention is here, is attending a conference of the parties to the CMS. So we really think that's important to coordinate activities to implement the decision 14BB to review scientific information on conservation and threats to sea turtles. We support collaboration that joins technical expertise from both treaties that will result in effective use of resources and opportunities to strengthen our collective actions towards achieving a favorable conservation status of sea turtle populations. We'll be sure that we will be working actively within CMS and also within the Sea Turtle Convention, the Inter-American Sea Turtle Convention, to implement these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil, for that supportive comment. If there are no further comments on the paper, can we then recommend for adoption document 27.6.1 Rev 1 on marine turtles? Yeah. And alongside that, the deletion of decision 1369, 1370. Yeah, and deletion of decision 13.69 and 13.70. Thank you. If there are no further comments, then we recommend for adoption. Thank you. Good. Can we move then to CRP 27.62 on the hawksbill turtle? This includes a draft resolution, draft decisions for our consideration. Also, document 27.6.2 asks us to adopt the associated single species action plan. Again, open the floor for comments. If there are no comments, can we recommend for adoption CRP 27.62 and the single species action plan associated? We can indeed. We will recommend. Thank you. Can we move then to CRP 27.7.1 on the single species action plan for the angel shark? This includes a draft resolution and several draft decisions for our consideration. In addition, document 27.2.1 includes an action plan for the angel shark that we're asked to adopt as part of the resolution. Again, can I open the floor for comments? If there are no comments, then can we recommend for adoption CRP 27.7.1 and the associated action plan? We can indeed. We will recommend it. Thank you very much. Let's move on then to CRP 27.7.2 on freshwater fish, including the European eel. This includes a number of draft decisions for our consideration, and document 27.7.2 Rev 1 also asks us to delete decisions 13.34 to 13.38. Again, can I open the floor for any comments? United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies for bringing proposals at this stage in the process. We had some technical difficulties that meant we couldn't do so in the working group. I was planning on running through the intent and we can provide the exact wording to the Secretariat for revised CRP, but can provide wording if you'd rather at this stage.
Seek your guidance on how significant the changes in wording are likely to be.
It's probably better to do as a revised CRP.
Yeah, thank you then. Let's do that then. If you could give us your comments now, then we'll get the text in from you and revise it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just go through. In decision 14cc, we've suggested some amendments to not dictate the action the Standing Committee takes and encourage progress ahead of the next COP. In decision 14dd, we've suggested some amendments to facilitate both Secretariat and party leadership in progressing this area of work. again aiming to complete it ahead of COP15. In decision 14EE, paragraph A, we've provided some clarity on where the sharing of data, how the sharing of data would occur, as that was lacking originally. And in paragraph C, referring to advice that will be received from the Scientific Council on that decision. And then in 14GG A, we've suggested that the INFDoc 1033 is used as the basis for the review so that we're not replicating that work, and included an additional paragraph B seeking advice from the Scientific Council on the proposed development of a multi-species action plan so that we can get scientific advice included in that decision-making process. And then finally, in 14HH, in paragraph C, we've suggested that the development and dissemination of relevant guidelines and management tools is supported by requests from parties, and added a paragraph D encouraging collaboration with the CITES Secretariat on the respective intersessional activities relating to the European eel. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could submit these comments to the Secretariat, then we'll revise the CRP and come back to it in due course. Thank you. Can we move on then to CRP 29.1 on the African Carnivore Initiative? This includes a number of new decisions for us to consider. In addition, document 29.1 Rev 1 asks us to consider deleting decisions 13.86 to 13.97. Again, any comments on this? If there are no comments, then can we recommend for adoption CRP 29.1 on the African Carnivore Initiative? And indeed we can. Thank you very much. We move on then to CRP 29.7 on pastoralism and migratory species. And this includes a number of new decisions for us to consider. Again, I can open the floor for any further comments. If there are none, then can we take CRP 29.7 and recommend it for adoption? And indeed we can. Thank you very much. So we're done. Can we move on then to CRP 30.5 on the conservation implications of animal culture and social complexity? This includes a number of new decisions for us to consider. Document 30.5 Rev 1 also asks us to take note of the reports referred to in the document and the recommendations of the expert working group on this issue. These recommendations are included in the Annex 1 to the document, and the document further asks us to consider deletion of decisions 13.102 to 13.105. Again, can I open the floor for comments? If there are none, can we then take CRP 30.5 on the conservation implications of animal culture and social complexity and recommend it for adoption? And again, indeed we can. Thank you very much. We then move on to CRP 30.2.2 on transfrontier conservation areas. This includes a number of new decisions for us to consider. In addition, document 30.2.2 Rev 2 asks us to consider deleting decisions 13.116 to 13.118. Again, any comments from the floor? If there are none, then can we take CRP 30.2 30.2.2 on transfrontier conservation areas and recommend this for adoption. And the appropriate deletion of decisions. Thank you, Secretariat, which is deletion of 13.116 to 13.118. Indeed we can. Thank you all very much. So we're done. We then move on to CRP 30.2.3 Rev 1 on communities and livelihoods. This includes a draft resolution and a draft decision for our consideration. Also, document 30.2.3 asks us to consider deleting decisions 13.119 to 13.121. Again, if I could open the floor for any comments. United Kingdom, please.
Thank you, Chair. The UK would like to thank the Secretariat for the revised CRP document provided. However, it was our understanding that with the additional preambular paragraph provided by the UK and included in the CRP, that the amendments made to replace the term communities with Indigenous peoples and local communities throughout the text would no longer be necessary. Therefore, we would ask that we would revert to the original text where these amendments have been made. We have also discussed this with our esteemed colleagues from the EU who have submitted these textual amendments and understand they will support this return to the original text. Thank you.
Thank you, United Kingdom. I think it's clear from that that we need to revise the CRP and we'll present it back to you in due course. I'll take comments from European Union and then the Snow Leopard Conservancy, but we will revise the text and bring it back. So, European Union.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that you aligns with the statement just made by the UK.
Thank you, European Union. Snow Leopard Conservancy.
Hello, I'm Urmande. Greetings. My name is Maria Junova. I'm with the Land of Snow Leopard Network and also Snow Leopard Conservancy. While we recognize the Convention on Migratory Species objectives to conserve terrestrial, marine, and avian migratory species throughout the ranges, its implementation has yet to truly recognize or include Indigenous peoples as partners. We reiterate that existing legal instruments must enable the direct, active, and meaningful participation of Indigenous peoples in decision-making, management, and policy formulation. We call upon Convention parties to honor their commitments to international indigenous rights standards sanctioned under the United Nations Indigenous Peoples' Rights Declaration and to champion policies and funding commitments that nurture intergenerational transmission of indigenous knowledge, languages, and cultural practices that have helped safeguard migratory species and their habitats over millennia. The future of the species depends on the resilience of Indigenous peoples, their cultures, and the lands that they have governed since the time immemorial. Nature knows no boundaries. Our fates are intertwined. Thank you.
Thank you, Snow Leopard Conservancy. I'll take Israel if I can, and this will come back as a revised CRP, so let's see where we get to. But Israel, please.
Thank you, Chair. As we had said in the first day, we're a small delegation and we can't always go to the working groups. And one of the comments you said was, well, these CRPs will come here to the cow. So unfortunately, we weren't able to include our comment in the actual negotiations on the text, but we would like to have a short paragraph included. It was something we mentioned earlier and it wasn't included. In the preamble to the resolution, we would like to include a short sentence, and I'll read it first quickly and then a little slower first. Under the recognizing that traditional interactions by IPLCs with wildlife can sometimes be harmful to the wildlife populations. And this was something that we had said earlier, and we would like to have it included in the preamble. So I'll say it again. Recognizing that traditional interactions by Indigenous peoples and local communities with wildlife can sometimes be harmful to the wildlife populations. This presumably could go in the preamble right before the further recognizing paragraph. And since it's going back to the working group, perhaps they'll consider this text then. Thank you.
Thank you, Israel, for that suggested amendment. It will be revised by Secretariat and brought back to the COW in due course. Excuse me, I'll take one final brief comment then from Conservation Force, please.
Thank you, Chair. And we align ourselves to the comments of the Snow Leopard Trust. The document in front of us, it's a minimum step toward what is really needed. And what is really needed is participation of IPLC in the decision making, not just what is contained also in the guidelines. We need IPLCs at the conferences, and we need IPLCs to be present in the decision making. And concerning what the Israel delegate just said, if we continue to give only negative connotations, I think we will do more harm than good to conservation. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll take one more comment from Zimbabwe, then I will close, because this will come back to the COW in due course. So Zimbabwe, please.
Thank you, Chair. We just want to align ourselves with the comments that have just been made by Conservation Force. Chair, I think it's time that we move a step forward in terms of recognizing the role of indigenous peoples and local communities, for they have lived with these migratory and other species since time immemorial, and we do not agree with the submission which has been made by Israel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are textual changes to the CRP, send these to the Secretariat, please. Secretariat will then bring back the CRP revised version to the COW, and we can discuss it there. Thank you very much indeed for that. Can we move then on to CRP 30.3.2 on renewable energy and migratory species? This includes a number of decisions for our consideration. Document 30.3.2 also asks us to consider taking note of the Energy Task Force list of activities included in Annex 1 to the paper and to delete decisions 13.106 to 13.108. Can I open the floor for any further comment? Got United Kingdom and then BirdLife International, please. United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. We thank the Secretariat for the CRP and for incorporating the UK's proposed amendments made earlier in the week. In relation to the proposed amendments made by other parties included in the CRP, we are content with most of them. However, we have some concerns regarding the scope of new subparagraph E in draft decision 14AA. In order for us to be able to accept this additional subparagraph, we would propose that requested is replaced with encouraged. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, UK. Again, could you repeat this very slowly, what paragraph and the change, just so Secretariat can catch it? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Chair. So it was subparagraph E in draft decision 14AA, and that was to replace requested with encouraged.
Thank you, United Kingdom.
Thank you.
BirdLife International, please.
Thank you, Chair. So BirdLife International would like to thank all parties for their comments on document 30.3.2 and their engagement on the CMS Energy Task Force. The Energy Task Force is a vital multi-stakeholder platform for which we would strongly encourage increased resourcing from parties so that we can collectively continue to advance the important work to reach our global climate goals while minimising the impact of renewable energy and power lines on migratory species. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Birdlife. I think there is one simple change to this document, which is in 14AA paragraph E, which is to replace the word requested with encouraged at the beginning of that paragraph. With that change, can we recommend for adoption? European Union and Zimbabwe, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid that we need further reflection on this change.
Thank you. We'll leave the CRP as amended then and come back to it once you've had time to coordinate. Thank you. Zimbabwe, please.
Thank you, Chair. Given the submission from the EU, perhaps we can come back to it, but we had no challenge with the submission from the UK. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think what we'll do, if the EU can't respond now, and I don't think you need to, we'll hold the revised CRP until later in the proceedings of the COW. If you could indicate when you're ready to make further comment, that would be useful. Thank you very much. And then finally, for now, can we move on then to CRP 30.4.2 on insect decline and its threat to migratory insectivorous animal populations. This again includes draft decisions for our consideration. In addition, document 30.4.2 Rev 1 asks us to take note of the summary of the report on this issue included in Annex 1 of the document and to consider deletion of decisions 13.129. Again, can I open the floor for any comments? If there are none, can we then recommend for adoption CRP 30.4.2 on insect decline and its threat to migratory insectivorous animal populations? I believe we can, so we will. Thank you very much. I'll just have a quick check with the Secretariat. I believe we can now return to the original one that we looked at this afternoon, CRP 24, in terms of amended wording there. I'll hand over to the Secretariat. I believe EU may want to comment on this item. No?
Thank you, Chair. We agree with the comment made from the UK, so it's all right with us.
Thank you, EU. With that, then, can we recommend for adoption CRP 24 on the review mechanisms and national legislation programme? Very minor changes that we had. And we also need to delete decisions 13.20 and 13.23 as part of the agreement. Indeed we can. So done. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We should now return to the agenda for the afternoon. When going through these CRPs, it's very tempting to, if anyone wants checks signed or me to agree to anything, just bring it in from my side and I would probably just read it and agree to it as well. But there we are. Thank you, Secretariat, for taking us through that. Very good. Can we return then to the agenda, which is on the interpretation and implementation of the Convention? We will begin by looking at 31.4, which is proposed amendments for appendices. 1 and 2 of the Convention. So 31.4, and the Secretariat will introduce. Thank you. Yes, Secretariat, please.
Thank you, Chair. So document 31.4, Rev 1 is simply a summary of the proposals, including some comments from non-governmental organizations, or intergovernmental organizations, and it's there for your information to use it in making decisions concerning the species proposals submitted by parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. With that, then, we should move into the proposals themselves. First one is 31.4.1, proposal for inclusion of the European lynx in Appendix 2, and the Balkan lynx and subspecies of Eurasian and lynx additionally in Appendix 1 of the Convention. North Macedonia, I believe, will introduce this item. North Macedonia.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, distinguished delegates, this is the first time North Macedonia is taking the floor. And on behalf of the Macedonian Ministry of Environment and Physical Planning and my home organization, Macedonian Ecological Society, I would like to thank the host and the Secretariat for this excellent organization in this historic city of Samarkand. North Macedonia as a proponent, together with Albania, Uzbekistan and Bosnia and Herzegovina as co-proponents, have submitted a joint proposal for the inclusion of the Eurasian lynx in Appendix 2 and the Balkan lynx as its subspecies in Appendix 1 of the Convention. Since Eurasian lynx populations in many range countries are threatened and fragmented, while the Balkan population is considered critically endangered, the inclusion of both Eurasian lynx in Appendix 2 and Balkan lynx as well in Appendix 1 will present an important step forward in regional efforts to conserve the species. It is expected to strengthen and build on the current conservation actions of range countries by promoting efforts to maintain the integrity of existing population and to improve connectivity between national and transboundary populations for their maintenance and restoration, the latter of which will be essential for removing barriers for migration. To get listed in one of the appendices, the Convention requires that species exhibit migratory behavior and are with unfavorable conservation status, entailing, in addition to national protection, internationally agreed actions for their conservation and management. The Eurasian lynx and the Balkan lynx meet this criteria because the species engaged in altitudinal and longitudinal migration throughout their distribution and dispersal. Moreover, many countries have populations that are declining or at risk of extinction, and international cooperation among range countries is expected to ensure survival and protection of these populations, as well as increased connectivity between populations across the species range. The listing of the Eurasian and the Balkan lynx under CMS is expected to raise global awareness of their conservation status and support various conservation programs, strengthen monitoring activities in the range countries, provide opportunities for identifying green infrastructure to ensure migration of the species, as well as increase transboundary cooperation between range countries to improve conservation measures and action plans. The listings is furthermore expected to act quickly to recover native populations that are at risk, to motivate the research of data-deficient populations, and to strengthen the institutional capacities of all relevant national and international actors regarding monitoring and conservation activities. To ensure that these important actions are taken for protection and conservation of one of the iconic carnivore species, we hope you give special consideration to our recommendation to support this proposal to list the Eurasian links and Balkan links on the suggested appendices of the CMS. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The suggestion then is Eurasian links to Appendix 2 and the Balkan subspecies to Appendix 1. Open the floor for comments. Yes, Algeria, please.
It's an error. Yes, Albania. Dear all, I am Albania, in fact. I don't have my microphone. Thank you very much, dear Chair. And Albania takes the floor for the first time in the meeting. And first of all, we would like to thank the CMS Secretariat, the State of Uzbekistan for the hospitality. Also, we want to thank the North Macedonia as proponent the inclusion of the Eurasian links in an Appendix 2 and Balkan links in Appendix 1 of the Convention and the Uzbekistan, Bosnia and Herzegovina is a co-proponent. The Ministry of Tourism and Environment of the Republic of Albania, the Balkan links holds critical endangered status and is strictly protected since 1969. This subspecies is fully protected under the Albanian legislation and well as by international convention. It is part of the site CSTS as listed on Appendix 2 of Berne Convention. Based on this, the Republic of Albania fully support and join this initiative. Thank you all.
Thank you, Albania, for that. Any other comments? If there are no other comments, then we can recommend to the COP to amend the listing for the particular species involved. So in this case, we recommend Appendix 2 for the Eurasian lynx and Appendix 1 for the Balkan subspecies of the Eurasian lynx. Got two comments, one from Turkmenistan, please.
Dear Chair, we have a comment on document 31+4.4.1. Уважаемые делегаты,
Honorable delegates, historically Eurasian type of the animals, we may say that they were living in the Koytatak and Kapitak mountains in transboundary place of Uzbekistan. And currently now we have a small population because of the protection which is ensured by the reserve in the Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. From the global point of view, these types of the lynx are located in the southern part of the countries, together with the Eurasian lynx, which was also mentioned in the Platon in our country. That's why inclusion of those animals into the Appendix 2 and 1 will strengthen the international cooperation, specifically between the Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. Thank you very much. We support this.
Thank you, Turkmenistan. Born Free Foundation, please.
Thank you, Chair. Born Free considers that the proponents have made a strong case for the listing of the Eurasian and Balkan lynx, including evidence that the species meets the interpretation of migratory in Resolution 13.7 via subadult dispersal and through often cyclical seasonal movements through their large home ranges, and that the species would benefit from international cooperation, particularly given that viable populations of lynx almost always extend across international boundaries. The lack of robust information on the status of the species across its Asian range and the separation of the species into 6 distinct subspecies, some of which are threatened with extinction. As the proposal notes, connectivity across international borders is very important to maintain the viability and genetic integrity of lynx populations, so COP14 is therefore urged to adopt this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Born Free. And finally, Conservation Force, please.
Thank you, Chair. While we applaud the efforts of the proponents to increase the conservation status of this important apex predator, we would like to ask the proponent more information about the predictability of the movements of the species. From the proposal, we can see that the species disperse. Dispersal of young individual is typical of many species, and clearly it's not an indication of migration. And also the altitudinal movement from high grounds to lower altitude during the winter, it's clearly also not a migration. So we would like to understand more, with your indulgence, Chair, what are the aspects of the cyclical and predictable nature of movements to define this species as migratory? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I may be able to help a little, which is in crossing, unpredictably crossing national boundaries as part of their annual cycle. But I'll let North Macedonia give a very brief answer on that, please, if you can.
Yes, thank you for this question. Eurasian lynx per se is not a migratory species by the definition of the migratory species of the word, migration, but with the behavior of dispersal, and especially with males, they exhibit something that is very similar to migration, because males can very often forage distances of several hundred kilometers into different directions, which is also recolonization process for the Eurasian lynx. While females usually exhibit philopatric behavior, certain females also exhibit this kind of dispersal behaviors in which they actually tend to go several, also 100 kilometers, and this has been confirmed with radiotelemetry research in all of the reintroduced and native populations of the Eurasian lynx within Europe. Unfortunately, this kind of research is lacking from many populations in Asia, but we hope that with this proposal and with the inclusion of the Eurasian lynx into the Appendix 2 and with the concerted actions that are proposed, that certain knowledge will be revealed from these populations which are now in Central and Eastern Asia. Thank you.
Thank you, North Macedonia. If there are no further requests for the floor, can we then consider recommending to COP to amend the listing for the Eurasian lynx to Appendix 1 and the Balkan subspecies to, Eurasian lynx to Appendix 2 and the Balkan subspecies to Appendix 1, please. So agreed. Thank you very much. Can we move on then to 31.4.2, which is a proposal for the inclusion of the Pallas's cat in Appendix 2 of the Convention, and I believe Kazakhstan will introduce this. Kazakhstan.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates, on agenda item 31.4.2, Kazakhstan urged parties to support the proposal to include the Pallas's cat on the CMS Appendix 2, which has been submitted by the government of Kazakhstan with support from the government of Uzbekistan. The Pallas's cat is the small species of wild cat with a wider but fragmented range across much of Eurasia. It's a species that is rarely seen, poorly known, and has received a little conservation attention to date. The Pallas's cat occurs in the shrubland steppes and montane grassland across the South Caucasus through Southwest Asia, Central Asia to Russia and China. It's widespread in Mongolia and China. Forever, populations are small and isolated. The species has disappeared or declined in several western parts of its distribution. Many populations of this species are transboundary and shared with the several range countries. Pallas's cat also has a wide individual home range, and it's known to move at a usually large distance. The Pallas's cat is highly vulnerable to the range of threats, including rangeland degradation due to overgrazing, livestock expansion, predation by domestic dogs, and climate change. Development of linear and settlement infrastructure pose an increasing obstacle to these migrations. 20% of Pallas's cat range lies with the region covered by the CMS Central Asian Mammal Initiative, and the species occurs in the all CAMI countries. The Pallas's cat is proposed for listing under Appendix 2 to enhance conservation of the species under this initiative. So the species status review and conservation strategy has been prepared, and there is a comprehensive network of the Pallas's cat conservationists and researchers. It's ideally placed to coordinate activities and monitor implementation of proposed objectives under the CAMI program work plan. So listing of the CMS Appendix 2 will raise the profile of the species among the governments, conservation practitioners, and facilitate increased conservation action at national and regional level. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will open the floor for any comments. Uzbekistan, please.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to thank the government of Kazakhstan for leading the process of listing Pallas's cat in Appendix 2 of the Convention. The government of Uzbekistan strongly supports the listing of Pallas's cat, which is also known as the manual. The listing on CMS Appendix 2 will support the conservation of this elusive and charismatic small cat species, which is transboundary by nature. We stand ready to collaborate in the conservation and recovery of this species as part of wider efforts to restore natural ecosystems. Since we are hosting the CMS COP14 in the homeland of this species, we consider the listing proposal to be very timely. Thank you.
Thank you, Uzbekistan. Turkmenistan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Уважаемые делегаты.
Distinguished delegates, in Turkmenistan, manul, or the Felis manul, is considered to be a very historic type of an animal. Its presence has been documented in the protected areas, as well as in the Ulu Balkan mountainous area, which is in the northern west of Turkmenistan. This species belongs to the Central Asian population, mainly lives in Iran, and the other subspecies, which are not Iran, are famous in Afghanistan, including in the Punjab plateau. That's like 850 kilometers away. Majority of the population is transboundary by its nature. They migrate and they're under the threat of endangered because of the development of infrastructure and the livestock. The implementation of the strategy on protecting the species developed in 2000 and 2010 by the group of experts on the feline family of animals will become possible if the animal will be included into the CES Commission and the official participations of the states that will be united in this very initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Born Free Foundation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Born Free feels that the proponents have adequately addressed the comments of the Scientific Council in their revised proposal. The species meets the interpretation of migratory in Resolution 13.7 by virtue of the transboundary nature of many of the populations and the common movements of individuals across large distances in pursuit of prey populations or in response to habitat disturbance. The species would clearly benefit from increased international cooperation. Given that most of its range lies within the region covered by the CMS Central Asian Mammals Initiative, CMS is in a strong position to coordinate mechanisms to foster that collaboration through the initiative. COP14 is therefore urged to adopt this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Born Free. Can I check if there are no other comments? That we're then happy to recommend COP to amend the listing for the Pallas's cat to Appendix 2 of the Convention. Thank you very much. In passing through that item, I hope that makes the Palace's cats smile, if you remember what they look like. Let's move on then to 31.4.3, which is a proposal for the inclusion of the guanaco in Appendix 2 of the Convention. And this will be introduced by the proponents. They've got Bolivia, Chile, or Paraguay, please. Peru, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Peru is presenting the proposal for the inclusion of guanaco, llama guanicoe, in Appendix 2 of the Convention. This has been drawn up with the Pro-National Republic of Bolivia, the Republic of Chile, and the Republic of Paraguay. These are also range states for guanaco, llama guanicoe. Guanaco is a wild species which lives in the arid and semi-arid regions of South America, and the populations are threatened or at risk of extinction. Its distribution is broad but fragmented from the north of Peru to the Navarino Island in the south of Chile, and from the northeast of the Pacific Ocean to the southeast of the Atlantic Ocean, and from sea level up to an altitude of 5,000 meters in the Andes. Although the conservation, according to IUCN, is of least concern, this is at species level, but there are two subspecies and various isolated populations, those of Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, north of Chile, and north of Argentina, and they are diminishing and or in danger of extinction. The direct threats in all of the current distribution range are the fragmentation of the habitat, linear infrastructure, feral dogs, and competition for grazing and water with domestic animals and cattle. And throughout its area of distribution, it has important movement, and this is essential for the connection of populations. It has been blocked because of human activity, such as the installation of fencing, and also mining and energy projects add additional barriers. And there's been a rapid development of oil and gas exploration in large areas of the range. In Appendix 2 listing would help us to drive actions to maintain the large, medium and small populations throughout the area and maintain their connection so that we can maintain and restore the populations. We believe it will help us to give priority to the management of the habitat as well as its protection, and we'll be able to work against illegal trade and participate in local, regional conservation measures for the guanaco populations and ensure there are transborder activities that are consistent with that and to share the work. So that is why we call for the approval of this proposal to list the species in Appendix 2 of the Convention. Thank you.
Thank you, Peru. Let me open the floor for comments, and Argentina, please.
Thank you, Chair. Argentina would like to congratulate the republics of Peru, Chile, Bolivia, and Paraguay for having drawn up this proposal for the inclusion of guanaco, llama guanico in Appendix 2 of the Convention. In our country, we have a large part of the populations of this species, which is categorized on a national level as least concern or not threatened. The populations in the northern part of our country have suffered a major diminution. We consider that the inclusion of this species in Appendix 2 of the Convention will help to conserve that same species with agreements through the range states. So we would like to state our support for this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Argentina. Eco Foundation Global, please. Sorry, I'm not sure if Eco Foundation, excuse me, Eco Foundation Global is wanting to make an intervention. What I'll do is I'll go to the Wildlife Conservation Society and then come back. So, Wildlife Conservation Society, please.
Thank you, Chair. WCS appreciates and congratulates the range states of Bolivia, Chile, Paraguay, and Peru for this important proposal to include the guanaco in Appendix 2. WCS strongly recommends adoption of the proposal. The species meets the CMS criteria for inclusion in Appendix 2. WCS hereby commits to continued collaboration with the range state of the guanaco and local communities, particularly in the conservation and management of habitats throughout the species range, efforts to combat illegal use and trade, and efforts to effectively and equitably conserve and manage shared populations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wildlife Conservation Society. Could I check if Eco Conservation Global wants to make an intervention, or we'll move on? I don't see any other requests for the floor. I wonder then, can we move to recommend to the COP to amend the listing for guanaco and to list it in Appendix 2? I don't see any other comments, so we will agree to do that. Thank you very much. Can we move on then to item 31.4.4, which is a proposal for the inclusion of Lahill's bottlenose dolphin in Appendix 1 and in Appendix 2 of the Convention. I think proponents Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay will introduce. Argentina, please. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Chair. Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina submit the following proposal to list the Lahill's bottlenose dolphin, Tursiops truncatus gayferus, in the CMS Appendices 1 and 2. Tursiops truncatus is widely distributed throughout the world, and the Lahill's bottlenose dolphin, the Tursiops truncatus gayferus, is one of the 3 subspecies recently recognized by the Taxonomy Committee of the Marine Mammal Society for the genus Tursiops, and by the International Whaling Commission as well. This subspecies is endemic to the coastal waters of southern Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina, and there are 2 evolutionary significant units, one in southern Brazil and Uruguay and another in Argentina. Due to its marked decline on both margins of the Rio de la Plata estuary since the 1990s and the small regional population size, the subspecies has been classified as vulnerable under the D1 criterion by the IUCN since 2019 and as endangered in the 3 countries. Recent studies carried out in Brazil and Uruguay show movements of specimens between the 2 countries. The abundance of this species has been estimated for a total population of 600 individuals. The inclusion of the species into international agreements such as CMS could help drive improvements in national and regional management, as well as fostering collaboration between the 3 countries. And to conclude, Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina could take forward a concerted action once this proposal is adopted, and we will continue to collaborate and reinforce the actions proposed by the International Whaling Commission, such as the potential for developing a management and conservation plan for Lahill's bottlenose dolphins, of which, as I have said, there are only 600 specimens left. The proponents hope that you will join us in this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. I will then go to Brazil and then to Uruguay. Brazil, please.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to thank Argentina for presenting the proposal to include the Lahill's bottlenose dolphin in appendices 2 and 3. This threatened species is in 2 protected areas of our country, in Bahia Branca and the Añatobarín region. And measures for its protection are in our national plan for marine cetaceans, and in particular working on bycatch of this species. However, we can only halt the population decline of the species with joint actions throughout all the range states. That includes Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. The inclusion of this species in appendices 1 and 2 of the Convention will help us to move forward our work to conserve this. So we join Argentina and Uruguay in inviting parties to support the approval of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. Can I go then to Uruguay?
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. As this is the first time I'm speaking on behalf of the government of Uruguay, I'd like to congratulate and thank the Secretariat and all the members therein who are making such efforts to develop this conference. And I'd like to thank our host country for receiving us here in Samarkand. And I'd like to greet all participants and wish everyone every success with the COP14. We have committed to progressing on our protected marine areas based on scientific evidence and participative processes that show clearly the biodiversity species that face the threats. And we have been working with the Franciscana and the Lahill's bottlenose dolphin. And we are working with dealing with all types of industrial fisheries which are a major threat. We have set out 7 sites of priority for the conservation and protection of marine species, and 10% of marine species will be covered by protections, and we have participative work to ensure that we achieve these goals. The inclusion of Lahill's bottlenose dolphin, which has recently been listed in the red list, and including it in appendices 1 and 2 will help us to have better regional management and collaboration between the 3 countries and ensure that we work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Uruguay. United Kingdom, please.
Thank you, Chair. The UK welcomes this listing proposal from Argentina, Brazil and Uruguay and congratulates them on their collaboration and work on this issue. It is clear that this is a species that would benefit from prioritised conservation action, and we are fully supportive of the proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, United Kingdom. Peru, please.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chair. Peru fully supports the proposal submitted by Argentina for the inclusion of Lahill's bottlenose dolphin, and we recognise the importance of this species for the ecosystem, the threats that it faces, and the measures necessary to ensure its conservation. Therefore, we recommend approving this proposal to include Lahill's bottlenose dolphin in Appendix 1 and 2 of the Convention. Thank you.
Thank you, Peru. And finally, IWC, please.
Thank you, Chair. The IWC has been concerned about this species since 2018 due to the levels of bycatch and disease. Latest updates were heard in 2023 at the Scientific Committee meeting, and due to ongoing concerns, the committee has recommended this species as a priority for the development of a conservation management plan. The committee also requested that the CMS consider reassessing the status of this species in its appendices. As such, we fully support this proposal and congratulate Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay on bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Can we then move to recommend to COP to amend the listing for the species, that's Lahell's bottlenose dolphin, in Appendix 1 and Appendix 2? We can indeed. Thank you very much. Can we move on then to item 31.4.5, which is a proposal for the inclusion of the Baltic proper population of the harbour porpoise in Appendix 1 of the Convention. And this will be introduced by the European Union, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Baltic proper population of the harbour porpoise has long been of conservation concern, with marked declines noted over the last century. Currently, it is considered as critically endangered, with some 500 individuals, according to the only abundance estimate available, which dates back to 2011-2013. The main threats relate to unusually high bycatch rates and environmental contaminants. Also, underwater noise may potentially cause displacement and behavioral impacts. Regular transboundary movements by individuals have been recorded across Swedish and Polish waters, but there is evidence that it spans the waters of at least 9 countries. Individual actions by each of the countries within the distribution range of the Baltic proper population of the harbour porpoise have proven insufficient to improve its conservation status. Bearing this in mind, the EU and its member states are confident that its inclusion in Appendix 1 of the CMS will provide the basis for more effective collaborative action for the conservation of this population by all range states bordering the Baltic proper, and for this reason have submitted and support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. I can open the floor for any comments. United Kingdom, please.
Thank you, Chair. The UK welcomes this proposal from the EU. The discrete Baltic harbour porpoise population is facing a number of significant threats, including bycatch. Bycatch is a priority area of focus for marine conservation efforts for the UK. We are therefore fully supportive of this listing proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, United Kingdom. Ocean Care, please.
Thank you, Chair. Ocean Care would like to thank the European Union for proposing the inclusion of the Baltic proper harbour porpoise in Appendix 1. The Baltic proper population has declined significantly over the last century, and the current population is estimated to be only a few hundred animals. We look forward to this new Appendix 1 listing, helping to generate the new necessary concrete conservation actions needed to ensure the conservation of this critically endangered population, and would like to highlight here the importance of the work already being carried out under Azkaban's and the Justania Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ocean Care. Whale and Dolphin Conservation, please.
Thank you, Chair. WDC would like to align with those who have spoken favourably of the proposal thus far. As one of the NGOs that has driven and implemented the concerted action for the harbour porpoise in the Baltic Sea and Iberian Peninsula, WDC strongly supports the proposal to include the Baltic proper population in Appendix 1 of the Convention, while maintaining the species on Appendix 2. WDC therefore recommends adoption of this proposal and remains committed to supporting the CMS Secretariat, Scientific Council and parties with the conservation of this critically endangered population. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other requests for the floor. Can we then recommend to the COP to amend the listing for the Baltic proper population of the harbour porpoise unto Appendix 1 of the Convention? We can indeed. So done. Thank you very much. Can we move on then to item 31.4.6, which is a proposal for the inclusion of the Peruvian pelican in Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 of the Convention. And I'll ask the proponents, which are Chile, Ecuador, Panama and Peru, to introduce, please. Yes, Peru.
Thank you very much, Chair. Peru is submitting the proposal to include the Peruvian pelican, Pelecanus stagus, in Appendix 1 and 2. We have submitted this jointly with Chile, Ecuador, and Panama. The Pelecanus stagus, or Peruvian pelican, is endemic to the Humboldt current ecosystem. It is one of the high components of the ecosystem, and it has an effect in terms of trophic flows. The bird produces phosphorus and nitrogen. These are important and have a bottom-up effect on other components of the Humboldt current ecosystem. This ecosystem is influenced by phenomena such as El Niño. These cycles change with warm and cold alternations. This is characteristic of the ecosystem and has an effect on the anchoveta fish. The pelicans, in the event of El Niño, transfer to Ecuador and other migratory countries. The population has decreased by 99.2%. compared to 340,000 specimens, which were observed in 1973, and 2,412 specimens recorded in 2023. These species face anthropogenic threats, overfishing, competition with fisheries, overexploitation, bycatch, and over the past few years, the effect of diseases such as avian flu. For all of these reasons, this species is classified as critically endangered. Including the Peruvian pelican in the Appendices 1 and 2 of the Convention will enable us to improve conservation along its range and improve its coastal, mainland and marine habitats. Taking measures to reduce the impact of threats will improve the population numbers. This is why we recommend adopting this approval to include the Peruvian pelican in Appendix 1 and 2 of the Convention. Thank you.
Thank you, Peru. Argentina, please.
Gracias, señor. Thank you, Chair. Argentina wishes to express its full support for this proposal. This inclusion would ensure much more effective conservation among the parties concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Argentina. If there are no other requests for the floor, can we then recommend the COP to amend the listing for the Peruvian pelican to Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 of the Convention? Oh, sorry, I see Brazil. It didn't come up on the board, I'm afraid. So, Brazil.
Now it's working. Sorry, Chair. It wasn't working before.
We wish to join Argentina in supporting this proposal, and we thank the governments of Chile, Ecuador, Panama and Peru for submitting such an important initiative for the conservation of biodiversity in our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. If there are no other interventions, then can we recommend the COP to amend the listing for the Peruvian pelican to Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 of the Convention? We can indeed. So, done. Thank you very much. We move on then to item 31.4.7, which is a proposal for the inclusion of the Magellanic plover in Appendix 1 of the Convention. And the proponent, Chile, will introduce the item. Chile, please.
Señor Presidente.
Chair, the proposal for the inclusion of the Magellanic plover in Appendix 1 of the Convention is submitted by Chile and was also developed jointly with Argentina. The Magellanic plover is of the Pluvianelli family and is included in Appendix 2 of the Convention already, but its inclusion in Appendix 1 seeks to encourage, as a matter of urgency, new conservation measures for the species and its habitat, and strengthen binational and multi-institutional cooperation, considering its worrying population size. The Magellanic plover is a species restricted to southern South America, where it breeds in southern Chile in the Magallanes region and Argentina in the provinces of Tierra del Fuego and Santa Cruz, wintering along the Atlantic coast as far as the Valdez Peninsula in the province of Chubut, and regularly reaching the province of Buenos Aires in Argentina. The species is currently considered near threatened globally, with an estimated population between 1,500 and 7,000 individuals. However, the first population censuses carried out between 2022 and 2023 have suggested a population no greater than 500 individuals. There are multiple threats to this small population, including the loss of habitat and decline in habitat quality, impacts caused by disturbances and predation by introduced species, the potential impact of energy projects, degradation and desertification of the Patagonian steppe due to overgrazing and climate change. Its global conservation status is currently being re-evaluated, and the species is already considered endangered at the national level in Chile and Argentina. Currently, BirdLife International is carrying out a reassessment of the state of conservation of the species, and we expect it to be reclassified as vulnerable or endangered globally. So what is the aim of this proposal? Well, the incorporation of Magellanic plover in Appendix 1 of the CMS is intended to promote binational collaboration between Chile and Argentina, including the creation of a binational coalition for the conservation of the species between ministries, regional governments, municipalities, NGOs, specialists, universities and research centers, communities, and the private sector. The creation of an international scientific working group to research the species, the creation and implementation of a binational recovery plan for the species, the creation of guidelines to evaluate the environmental impact of energy projects on those areas of influence with respect to critical habitats for the species, design and implementation of a binational monitoring program and system, declaration and management of new protected areas that allow the management of critical habitats, public-private administration and management, and the creation and protection of a binational migratory corridor. The Scientific Council took note of the fact that BirdLife International had recently reassessed the state of conservation of the Magellanic plover and issued a recommendation to reclassify it as vulnerable and supported this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. I'll open the floor for any further comment. Yes, Brazil, please.
Gracias.
Thank you, Chair. Brazil wishes to support the proposal submitted by the governments of Argentina and Chile, and we thank them. It's very important to ensure bilateral cooperation for the conservation of biodiversity in the southern cone of our continent. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. Peru, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Peru fully supports this proposal and congratulates Chile and Argentina for developing this proposal for the inclusion of the Magellanic plover in Appendix 1. We recognize the threats it's facing and the importance of taking measures to ensure its conservation. As a megadiverse region, our countries support the conservation of species living there, and we appreciate the importance of working together on this. This is why we support this proposal for the inclusion of Magellanic plover in Appendix 1 of the Convention. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Peru. I don't see any other requests for the floor, so could we recommend to the COP to amend the listing for the Magellanic plover to Appendix 1 of the Convention? And again, indeed we can. Thank you very much. We move on then to item 31.4.8, which is a proposal for the inclusion of the southern African population of the bearded vulture to Appendix 1 of the Convention. And I'd ask South Africa to introduce, please.
Thank you, Chair. The government of the Republic of South Africa submitted a proposal for the inclusion of the Southern African population of bearded vulture, Rhipitus barbatus meridionalis, on Appendix 1 of CMS. Two distinct subspecies are recognized based on plumage characteristics. Rhipitus barbatus occurs north of the Tropic of Cancer. Rhipitus barbatus meridionalis occurs in sub-Saharan Africa, which include Ethiopia, East Africa, and Southern Africa. The uplisting is focusing on the population of the Southern African subspecies. Globally, the bearded vulture is classified as near threatened. Regionally, the Southern African population is classified as critically endangered due to its small and declining population size, restricted range contraction, and susceptibility to several threats in Lesotho and South Africa. The population is also genetically distinct from the bearded vulture elsewhere in the world, including populations of the same subspecies in sub-Saharan Africa, and should be managed and conserved as such. The population size is estimated at 334 individuals, including approximately 100 breeding sites. In terms of migratory status, tracking data from 2007 to date has shown that movements are predictable, cyclical, and cross-border between Lesotho and South Africa in search for food when food resources are scarce in Lesotho during winter period and in response to life history patterns. The baseline model estimated that there will only be 62 birds, 20 breeding pairs remaining in the wild in 50 years' time should no further intervention be implemented. The uplisting to Appendix 1 is considered as an important tool to aid in the protection of the species in terms of prohibiting the taking of such species, promoting conserving and where appropriate restoring their habitats, preventing and mitigating obstacles to their migration, and controlling other factors that might endanger them. The proposal was shared with the CMS Scientific Council, the national contact person of the signatories and cooperating partners to the Raptors MOU. Support and comments were received from Lesotho as a non-party range state, Africa, Uganda, Regional Trans-Frontier Conservation Program, relevant conservation NGOs, and the CMS Scientific Councils, and were duly considered in this regard. The Scientific Council recommended the proposal for adoption by the COP. Concentrated action will be taken by the government of South Africa through the implementation of the bilateral bearded vulture recovery strategy and action plan, as well as other policy and planning tools. The COP is therefore requested to review the proposal for amendment to appendixes and make a decision regarding the proposal as submitted by the Government of South Africa. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, South Africa. I'll open the floor for comment. Zimbabwe, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wish to confirm that South Africa consulted with the Africa Group, and currently Zimbabwe is chairing the group. Therefore, Africa supports the proposal submitted by South Africa for the Southern African bearded vulture population that is being classified regionally as critically endangered and exhibiting unfavorable conservation status. Recent data indicate the population of this species is small and declining. Its range is restricted and it's contracting due to various factors, and it is showing susceptibility to several threats throughout its range. We believe that these characteristics make the species a suitable candidate for listing in Appendix 1 of the Convention, and concerted measures will be considered to support the recovery of this unique bird. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Zimbabwe. I've got then open the floor for further comments. It's Senegal, please.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Chair. We would like to join Zimbabwe and South Africa in supporting this proposal, given the state of conservation, which is very unfavorable of this species, with numbers which do not bode well for its survival. We support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Senegal. Malawi, please.
Thank you so much, Chair. Since this is the first time that Malawi is taking the floor, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the government of UZSCAN for hosting this event or COP in this beautiful city, and the home hospitality awarded to Malawi delegation, but also thanking the Secretariat, CMS Secretariat, for the excellent organization of the COP. Malawi is in full support of the proposal submitted by the government of South Africa. Malawi is a range state, but also an important pathway for several vulture species, and currently Malawi is undertaking a number of conservation restoration programs in the protected areas that have seen vultures returning. These include recent studies being undertaken jointly with development partners like Lilong Wildlife Trust and Endangered Wildlife Trust, to understand the ecological behavior ecology of vultures across Malawi and the region. Therefore, Chair, Malawi fully supports and agrees with what Zimbabwe and Senegal has just submitted. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Malawi. If there are no other requests for the floor, then can we recommend COP to amend the listing for the Southern African population of the bearded vulture onto Appendix 1 of the Convention, please. Oh, sorry, Uganda. Sorry.
Sorry, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to be brief again and join Zimbabwe and other colleagues to support the proposed listing, confirm to the COP that Uganda was fully consulted, and we saw the need to support this proposal. The population is under threat. And then just to highlight that the listing in itself may not help us, although it attracts international attention and raises awareness. There is still need to implement deliberate measures to save this important species. So we call upon our partners and friends to support South Africa to conserve this species, and we fully support the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Uganda. If there are no other requests for the floor, then can we recommend the COP to amend the listing for the southern African population of the bearded vulture onto Appendix 1 of the Convention? We can indeed. Thank you very much. We move on then to 31.4.9, which is a proposal for the inclusion of the sand tiger shark in Appendix 1 and 2 of the Convention. And I think Brazil and Panama are the proponents, so I'll turn to them to introduce. Thank you.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chair. As for document 31.4.9, proposal for the inclusion of the sand tiger shark, Carcharias taurus, in Appendix 1 and 2 of the Convention, Brazil and Panama invite parties and the entire CMS community to support this proposal, which is crucial for our efforts towards the conservation of this species. The sand tiger shark is also known as Nodris agris, and all of these names I have just listed in Spanish. In Portuguese, it's known as Tubarão maronha. Despite all of these different names, they are not sighted very often worldwide. In fact, the sand tiger shark has been assessed as critically endangered globally. It has a regular and cyclical migration movement on a seasonal basis, and as such, it faces a series of threats throughout its range. We know that there is a transboundary migratory movement throughout its range. The best scientific knowledge available shows that there's a significant reduction in the population of the species in most of its range. The latest data available show that in some regions they haven't been caught or recorded in decades. Although several specific species-related measures exist in different countries and regions, there is no protection at a global level. In some regions, management and conservation measures seem to be leading to the recovery of population numbers. The proposal submitted with Brazil and Panama is essential to ensure the recovery of the species throughout its range. The inclusion in Appendix 1 and 2 of the Convention will ensure that this species is protected by all parties throughout its range. The Appendix 2 inclusion will ensure coordinated protection measures in regions where we know that this species is part of transboundary migratory movements and crosses international borders. Brazil and Panama therefore invite all members and parties to the Convention to support this crucial proposal, which will help our efforts in the conservation of this species. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. Thank you, Panama, for bringing this to our committee. I'll open the floor for comments, please. I've got Israel, please, first. Israel.
Thank you, Chair. Israel would like to thank Brazil and Panama for bringing this species proposal to the convention, to the COP. We are fully supportive of the proposal. It's interesting to note that the species was actually first named 200 years ago by the scientists were fascinated by a specimen that was captured in the Mediterranean, but now the species is pretty much extirpated from the Mediterranean and may actually be extinct from the Mediterranean according to IUCN assessments. In Israel, national legislation protects all sharks and rays. They may not be harmed or fished, and we support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Israel. Senegal, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. As you are aware, this species is threatened in particular by fisheries throughout its distribution range. It is either targeted or sometimes threatened by bycatch. And I think that for us, this is an opportunity to show our solidarity to the two countries that have proposed this inclusion, and we should therefore support their proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Senegal. United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. The UK welcomes this important listing proposal from Brazil and Panama. We are fully supportive of this proposal. Migratory species need transboundary cooperation, particularly in those regions where further effective implementation is needed. Including the sand tiger shark on both appendices will provide an important platform for the coordination of conservation actions and protection of the species. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, United Kingdom. Costa Rica.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you, Chair. Our countries, Argentina, Costa Rica, Uruguay, Peru, Dominican Republic, Antigua and Barbuda, and Paraguay, we support the proposal that has been put forward by Brazil and Panama. In document 31.4.9 on the sand tiger shark, and including them in appendices 1 and 2 of the convention is something we support. Thank you.
Thank you, Costa Rica. Maldives, please.
Thank you, Chair. Maldives congratulates Brazil and Panama for jointly submitting the proposal for the inclusion of the sand tiger shark on Appendix 1 and 2 of the Convention. Maldives is not a range state for this species, but we have protected all sharks in our waters, making the Maldives a shark sanctuary. We strongly support efforts at global, regional, and local levels towards protection of critically endangered sharks such as the sand tiger shark. The species needs cooperation and collaboration between states for conservation and management. For this reason, we strongly support a CMS Appendix 1 listing with collaborative action coordinated by a listing on Appendix 2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Maldives. Australia, please.
Thank you, Chair. Australia thanks the governments of Brazil and Panama for developing such a comprehensive listing proposal for the sand tiger shark. Australia is a range state for the species, which we call the grey nurse shark. As a range state with two populations occurring in our waters, we were pleased to have constructive discussions with Brazil and Panama after the listing proposal was submitted for consideration to COP14. I'd like to start by saying that Australia supports the listing proposal as submitted by the governments of Brazil and Panama at document 31.4.9 Rev 2. Australia is a strong supporter of the convention and values working cooperatively with other countries to optimise the conservation of migratory species and their habitats. I would also like to take this opportunity to clarify a couple of points. We thank Brazil and Panama for submitting the Rev 2 document that corrects some inadvertent errors and clarifies the situation with the two populations that occur in Australian waters. I would note that the
distribution map included in the revised proposal, and that was included in the original proposal, is not an accurate reflection of the distribution of the two populations in Australia, as they do not travel across the top or the bottom of our country. However, I recognise that correcting the map was difficult at this late stage and appreciate Brazil's efforts. This perhaps demonstrates the usefulness of consulting with all range states before a listing proposal is submitted to ensure that the most up-to-date information is included at that stage and reduces the likelihood of needing to submit rev docs. The populations that occur in Australia are considered genetically distinct and geographically isolated. Hence, they are listed under Australia's national environmental law as two separate populations and have differing conservation statuses. Both populations are afforded the highest level of protection in Australia, and we continue to actively manage both of our populations, where management measures prohibit retention and reduce fishing mortality. Australia would be happy to share information regarding our conservation approaches to facilitate improved management of other separate populations. The Convention outlines that only species and populations that meet the criteria for inclusion in the appendices and would benefit from international cooperation and focused attention should be included. To include species or populations that are not eligible or would not benefit from international cooperation, from our perspective, only serves to weaken the integrity of the Convention and dilute focus from species that require urgent attention. I note that the Convention provides for the ability to list specific populations of species or regional groupings of species to ensure that populations that require urgent attention are highlighted and prioritised for action. There are many examples of this facility being used in both Appendix 1 and 2. Extensive scientific studies have confirmed that the Australian East Coast population does not meet the CMS definition of migratory, as the population does not leave Australian waters due to the size of our jurisdiction and our geographical isolation. I highlight the advice provided by the Sharks MOU Advisory Committee on the listing proposal at document 31.4 Rev 1, which also recognises that the East Coast population does not meet the CMS definition of migratory. I note that this was also recognised in the Rev 2 listing proposal. It is recognised again that the science regarding the potential historical range and current movements of our West Coast population is less clear, and as such, Australia supports a precautionary approach being applied for this population, particularly as further scientific research is currently underway to address these gaps in knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Australia, I note especially the need for sharing of information and early consultation on proposals. Can I take IUCN, please? I'm sorry, can I take Panama next, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Panama, as a co-proponent, supports the proposal for the sand tiger shark and would like to thank parties for their support. And in particular, we'd like to express our gratitude to Australia for the constructive commentaries during our discussions. The revised document recognises the absence of a cross-border movement of the very small population on the east coast of Australia, and which was listed in New South Wales many years ago. We recognise that this population has recovered to an extent that it is less endangered and emigrates regularly outside Australian waters.
Thank you. Panama. IUCN, please.
Thank you, Chair. The sand tiger shark is highly threatened across its known range, local extinctions and severe population declines of over 80% in the last 75 years have already been documented in several regions of the world, including the Western Indian Ocean, South America, and Australia. These critically endangered species can undertake substantial migrations of thousands of kilometers in a very short amount of time across international boundaries, including of CMS range states that comprise the bulk of its known distribution. Given its unfavorable conservation status and highly migratory nature, IUCN considers that all populations meet the criteria for inclusion in the Appendixes 1 and 2, and believes that this species would benefit from a CMS listing. IUCN supports the proposal and recommends its adoption. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, IUCN. And then finally, Wildlife Conservation Society, please.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of WCS, HS, HSIA, BRT, and IFA. We would like to express our support for the sand tiger shark and its listing in Appendices 1 and 2 of CMS. This shark plays a vital role in maintaining ecosystem balances throughout its distribution area. However, it has declined by more than 80% over the last 75 years. The sand tiger shark has a late maturity and only produces 2 pups every 2 years, and the annual migrations ensure that it is very vulnerable to many fisheries, and there are pronounced population declines. The loss of habitat, pollution, and uncertain impact of climate change may also be affecting its migratory patterns. These factors together have been devastating for the population of this important species. The species is categorized on a global level as critically endangered, and throughout most of its distribution range, it is at risk because of its migratory nature and the unfavorable conservation status. It meets the criteria of CMS to be included in both appendices. Including these in Appendices 1 and 2 will expand any existing national protections and will facilitate cross-border coordination for its protection. We call on parties to adopt this proposal by consensus to assist this species, which once was abundant throughout its vast distribution range. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other requests for the chair. Can I then take us to recommend to the COP to amend the listing for the sand tiger shark to include on Appendix 1 and Appendix 2, please? Thank you very much. I would like to add a note from myself to Australia and to thank you for the constructive and collegiate way that you've approached that issue, and the ecology is never straightforward, so thank you very much for that approach. Can we move on then to item 31.4.10, which is the proposal for the inclusion of the black-chinned guitarfish in Appendix 2 and the Mediterranean Sea population of this species in Appendix 1 of the Convention, and Israel to introduce. Israel, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have 3 species proposals now. We'll go through them one at a time. There are some similarities, but each species is unique, and we'll just highlight some of the issues here. The species proposals were discussed at the scientific meeting in July 2023, the Sessional Committee of the Scientific Council, and also in the aquatic working group here at COP14, and all these have approved it. So we're bringing it here to the cow for the next stage in the approval. The black-chin guitarfish is a close relative of the common guitarfish, Rhinobatus, which was proposed and accepted into the appendices at COP13, and it wasn't proposed at that time, so it's basically should have been probably proposed then. This species was assessed by IUCN in 2019 as critically endangered globally, since the populations have undergone a 90% reduction in 3 generations. At this time, I would like to express my thanks to Dr. Rima Jabado of the United Arab Emirates, who is chair of the IUCN Species Survival Commission Shark Specialist Group, for all her work on this particular assessment, and her and all the Shark Specialist Group work on shark and ray conservation. This species is known from the west coast of Africa, and the regional fishers in that area synchronize their fishing activities to the guitarfish with their predictable migratory patterns and their reproductive behavior. The species is subject to intense targeted and untargeted fishing, especially what we call IUI, the illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing that's common in many areas of the world, especially in West Africa, too. All members of this family are in very high demand for their high-quality fins, which, when caught in West Africa, are almost always exported to the Far East. All species of this genus, of the Glaucostegus, were included in Appendix 2 of the CITES Convention in 2019. As I said, this species was analyzed by the CMS Scientific Council, and again here at the Aquatic Working Group, and all these have recommended it for its adoption. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Israel. I'll open the floor for comments. Senegal, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to thank Israel for having submitted this proposal. And this proposal will solve some of the issues of the similarities between the Rhinobatus and the guitarfish. These are similar, and in Rhinobatus at the last COP and its listing meant that there could be some confusion in differentiating these two species, and if they are both categorized at similar levels, that would assist. So this species, which is critically endangered, is subject to a great deal of pressure, in particular from fishery, as we heard from Israel just now. Illegal, unregulated and unreported fishing, and this takes place on our coasts with artisanal small-scale fishery, and it is a threat to this species. And we see these type of incidents virtually every day, so this inclusion will help to conserve the species, so we strongly support the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Senegal. IUCN.
Thank you, Chair. To save time, this intervention is relevant to all the 3 following proposals: the black-chin guitarfish, document 31.4.10, the bull ray, document 31.4.11, and the Lusitanian cownose ray, document 31.4.12 in the Appendix 2, and the Mediterranean Sea populations of this species in Appendix 1 of the Convention. All 3 species have been assessed as critically endangered on the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species and are facing steep population declines due to the overfishing across their range. IUCN considers that these species will greatly benefit from CMS listings and recommends the adoption of these proposals. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, IUCN. I don't see any other requests for the floor, so I wonder if we could move to recommend to the COP to amend the listing for the black-chin guitarfish to Appendix 2 and the Mediterranean population to Appendix 1. In agreement with that? Thank you very much. Can we move then to item 31.4.11, proposal for the inclusion of the bull ray in Appendix 2 and the Mediterranean Sea population of the species in Appendix 1 of the population of the Convention. And this will be introduced again by Israel, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is the second of the three proposals that we submitted, and just like the previous one, this was discussed by the CMS Scientific Council at its meeting in 2023, and again by the Aquatic Working Group here at COP14, and both those bodies had approved it or for adoption by the COP. Just briefly, it was assessed, as was said just a few minutes ago, by the IUCN. Last assessment was in 2016. It's critically endangered globally and critically endangered in the Mediterranean Sea. The species forms aggregations or schools that are connected to its breeding behavior, and these schools cross international boundaries in certain areas. Unlike the previous species, this species is not targeted, but is usually taken as bycatch. The species was recently listed by the Barcelona Convention, which is the Convention for Protection of the Mediterranean Sea, under its protocol, or Annex 2 of its protocol, on specially protected areas and biological diversity in the Mediterranean. The species that are listed in Annex 2 of the SPA-BD protocol are automatically not allowed to be fished or taken in the Mediterranean Sea according to a GFCM rule. The GFCM is the General Fisheries Commission of the Mediterranean, the FAO fisheries body for the Mediterranean. So they're already protected in the Mediterranean under the Barcelona Convention and the GFCM, and this would complete, in a sense, their protection also by the international body under the Convention of Migratory Species. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Israel. I'll open the floor for any comments. Senegal, thank you.
Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. We support this proposal, and we'd like to use this opportunity to support the other proposal on the Dorada. These are proposals that deserve to be supported, and they generally have a very unfavorable conservation status. Thank you.
Thank you, Senegal. Egypt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Egypt would like to thank Israel for this very interesting proposal. Hence, we support the proposal, and we hope all other countries will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Egypt. If there are no other requests for the floor, then can I take us to recommend to COP to amend the listing for the species in, I'll start that again. Recommend to COP to amend the listing for the bull ray to Appendix 2 of the Convention and the Mediterranean population to Appendix 1. Thank you all very much. Well done. We move on then to item 31.4.12, the proposal for the inclusion of the Lusitanian cow-nose ray in Appendix 2 and the Mediterranean Sea population of this species in Appendix 1 of the Convention. And again, Israel to introduce.
Thank you, Chair. As we mentioned in the previous two species, this third species was also discussed by the Scientific Council. But interestingly, this species was discussed by the Scientific Council at its 14th meeting in 2007. That's 17 years ago. And at that time, the Council recommended that the species should be included in the annexes of the Convention. Yet no party had submitted a listing proposal until now. So here's the opportunity of the COP to move ahead from that Scientific Council decision so many years ago. The Lusitanian Kaunos ray is different than the other two species, that it has a very long generation length of 27 years and only has one single offspring per year. An IUCN assessment from 2021 found that the species is critically endangered throughout its range. It's undergone 90% reduction in population in 3 generations. In West Africa, there are still targeted fisheries for the species that utilize its seasonal migratory patterns. Other species of the genus Rhinoptera in the world, in other parts of the world, are known for large aggregations and movements along the coast. And this species apparently is also a very similar schooling behavior. Just like the previous species, the species was listed in the protocol of specially protected areas and biological diversity for the Mediterranean under the Barcelona Convention, and it's already protected in the Mediterranean Sea. And we would like to thank Egypt for their support with the previous proposal and hope they'll support this one too. As we said, this species was considered by the Scientific Council at its meeting in 2007, again in its meeting last year in Germany, and also by the Aquatic Working Group here at COP14, and we would ask the COW to support it for the COP plenary. Thank you.
Thank you, Israel. I'll open the floor for any comments. Yes, Egypt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, we would like to thank Israel for this very interesting proposal, which we support, and we hope all delegates support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Egypt. If there are no other requests for the floor, can we recommend the COP to amend the listing for the Lusitanian cow-nose ray to Appendix 2 and the Mediterranean Sea population of the species to Appendix 1? And we can indeed. Thank you very much. We move on then to item 31.4.13, the proposal for the inclusion of the gilded catfish in Appendix 2 of the Convention, and Brazil, as the proponent, will introduce. Brazil, please.
Thank you, Chair. Since documents 31.2.4.13 and 31.4.14 are both proposals made by Brazil to similar fishes, Amazonian migratory fishes, I ask your indulgence to make just one presentation for both. I think we save time. So I will present both proposals at one time.
Thank you, Brazil. Just to clarify, that is good, and if you can do that, I'll then come back to each agenda item and seek approval one by one. Yeah.
Thank you. Cada vez más hay pruebas de que los peces.
Every day there is evidence that freshwater species are among the most threatened worldwide. Although the cause for the loss of these species are well known, the measures to protect them seem to remain rare. In the resolution 10.12 of the CMS Convention, it is recognized that they are underrepresented in the Convention appendices. And in light of this resolution, the Secretariat requested a reassessment of the status of freshwater species in order to determine which species could benefit from protection under the annexes. Within this context, the document Review of Freshwater Fish /CMS/INF 10.33 showed that around 30 species fulfill specific criteria, which are that they are freshwater transboundary species with an unfavorable conservation status. Whether we're talking about the gilded catfish or the lalau, unfortunately, both of these fulfill those criteria. This motivated Brazil and Panama to submit this proposal for the gilded catfish as well as the lalau catfish for inclusion on Appendix 2 of the Convention. These freshwater fish that can be found in the Orinoco and Amazonic waters, as well as the Guianas area, although their migratory routes are better known as the Amazon basin, they undertake the largest migration worldwide in warm waters. They are among the most important species for commercial fisheries in the Amazon. Currently, the state of conservation of the gilded catfish is vulnerable on the basis of its distribution. And overfishing can have disastrous effects for a number of these species, as well as deforestation, mining, and hydroelectric dams, which can potentially affect the life cycle of these species. Drastic reductions in some populations have been recorded. These threaten the survival of these species at a local level. Taking into account the development of infrastructure and overfishing, there is an urgent need for an integrated plan to manage and protect both of these species at a regional level. It's critical to come up with an integrated commitment among these countries, which are range states for the species, to set out actions, initiatives, and strategies for conservation and management, and promote the sustainable use of these fishing resources in order to ensure environmental, social, and economic sustainability in the countries of its range. All of the parties, apart from one, all of the states, apart from one, are parties to the CMS. Therefore, inclusion on Appendix 2 of the Convention will support collaborative measures and coordination at the regional level. This is why Brazil and Panama urge all parties to the CMS to support the proposals to include the lau catfish as well as the gilded catfish on Appendix 2 of the Convention. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil, for that. I'll open the floor for comments. I'll take comments on either species, I think, given the way the introduction was made, and then I'll come back and take each individually in terms of listing. So open the floor. European Union, please.
Thank you, Chair. The European Union and its member states would like to thank the government of Brazil for submitting this proposal. Even though this migratory species is currently assessed as least concern under the IUCN Red List, overfishing, together with other factors acting individually or in synergy, including deforestation, mining, and the construction of hydroelectric dams, represent an increasing harm that can compromise its survival in the near future. In fact, there is already evidence of major impacts in this sense. There is also a clear need to carry out a knowledge program on this species and on the pressures to which it is subject to better calibrate the potential of an international management plan. Therefore, in order to protect this species, the EU and its member states consider that there is a clear need for international coordinated action, which will have to help local communities to anticipate possible impacts on fishermen's catch and hence on their income to manage and conserve this species transnationally. The EU and its member states support the inclusion of the gilded catfish in Appendix 2 of the Convention. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. Uruguay, please.
The region of Central, South America and the Caribbean supports the proposal put forward by Brazil in document 31.4.13, that is to say, the inclusion of gilded catfish Brachyplatsisoma rosoxi on Appendix 2 of the Convention, as well as the proposal submitted by Brazil and Panama in document 31.4.14, proposal for the inclusion of the Lalau catfish Pyramituba on Appendix 2 of the Convention, and we urge other parties to support them too. Thank you.
Thank you, Uruguay. Wildlife Conservation Society.
Gracias.
Thank you, Chair. WCS appreciates these proposals and the attention paid by CMS parties to the conservation of freshwater species of migratory fish, particularly in the Amazon. We appreciate the efforts of regional organizations, civil society, and local organizations in protecting these species within the Amazon region. We strongly support the proposal to include the gilded catfish as well as the Lalau catfish on Appendix 2 of the Convention. This will enable us to improve management throughout migratory routes. We also urge all of you to take part in the side event on these fascinating species, which will be held this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. If there are no other requests for the floor, then I'll take each species in turn. So under 31.4.13, the proposal is to include the gilded catfish in Appendix 2 of the Convention. So can we proceed to recommend into the COP to amend the listing for the gilded catfish to include in Appendix 2? We can indeed. Then moving on to item 31.4.14, the Lau catfish. Can I be clear if there are any other comments that people would like to make on this agenda item? If not, then can we move to recommend to COP to amend the listing for the Lau catfish to include the species in Appendix 2 of the Convention? We can indeed. Thank you very much, and thank you, Brazil, for the excellent combined introduction to these items. Something pretty remarkable has happened in that we have actually concluded the majority of our business for this afternoon, and it's still relatively early in our committee meeting. I'll just check with Secretariat if there's work that we could undertake now to clear up some issues. Secretariat?
Thank you, Chair. So we still have the opportunity at this session to recommend adoption of CRP 30.3.2, renewable energy and migratory species. Towards the beginning of today's session, the United Kingdom made a one-word edit to one of the decisions, and the European Union needed to consult. And then we could also take up the document 23 on national reports, so that if there are any changes, we can get that to a working group or prepare a CRP for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Are we in a position to agree to 30.3.2, or do we still need more time to consider that small issue? European Union? Sorry, I've got Mongolia first and then European Union.
Sorry, Chair. I have comments about Sacred Falcons, not on this, but if you allow me, the reason is Mongolian delegation is leaving tomorrow early morning. But we know the resolution of Sacred Falcon will not come up now until tomorrow. So may I say our suggestions now and leave?
Mongolia, if you can finish the issue that I'm coming to the European Union on, then I'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. European Union, please.
Thank you, Chair. No, the European Union has not had enough time to consult internally, so we'll come back to this.
Thank you, European Union. You're taking me back to many years I spent in coordination as well, so good luck with that. Thank you. Mongolia, please.
Thank you, Chair. We understand the Sacred Falcon resolution will be not discussed today, but it will be up for discussion tomorrow. So because our focal point and the entire delegation we are leaving tomorrow morning, and we would like to say it now, so it will be counted in the agenda when we discuss it tomorrow. So we understand also the European Union may have had some comments on the same paragraph on the resolution of Sacred Falcon, and that the updated CRP will be available later today. So we are happy to coordinate with the EU to come on to agree this evening. So Mongolia is an important range state for the Sacred Falcon, and we are very pleased to support the resolution on the Sacred Falcon Global Action Plan and thank the Sacred Falcon Task Force for their excellent work. We would just like to make a small change to the wording of the second operative paragraph. It's important to restate the goal of the Sacred Falcon Action Plan. But at the moment, the first half of the goal is split from the second half by some inserted text. So we would suggest keeping the goal of the Sacred Global Action Plan in its entirety as the second operative, so that it reads, decides to continue the implementation of the Sacred Global Action Plan with the overall goal to reestablish a healthy and self-sustaining wild Sacred Falcon population throughout its range and to ensure that any use is sustainable. And then the text related to the CITES endorsement program in Mongolia should be a third operative paragraph. But we would suggest a slight wording change because the program is already underway, so the text would say, encourages the continuation of the CITES endorsement program in Mongolia of using artificial nests to contribute to setting sustainable harvest quotas, and encourages additional further activities on the natural breeding population of Sacred Falcons in Mongolia. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mongolia, and thank you for your involvement in the work of the Sacred Falcon Task Force. It is much appreciated by the other members. Can I just summarize where we were with the listing proposals? It is important that we just recognize the conservation benefit that comes from these listing proposals. So again, thank you to all the proponents and supporting organizations in the various listing proposals that we agreed to take to COP this afternoon. So thank you for that. Could I just check with the Secretariat? And just on the Sacred issue, Mongolia, if you could send these changes to Secretariat as soon as possible, that would be very much appreciated, and encourage you to discuss further with the EU this evening, if you can, before you leave. So thank you for that. We have had a very busy day, a very productive day. Can I check with Secretariat in terms of timing and where we are? Secretariat?
Well, as you mentioned, Chair, we finished our work for the day. It would be very useful, however, if we could take up document 23 on national reports. There are draft amendments to Resolution 12.5 there, some new draft decisions, and if there is a need to revise them, we can have them ready for tomorrow's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. I have two issues. I see some delegations that are not in the room at the moment when we're running ahead of time. And again, if I could perhaps check with the EU in terms of coordination, whether you'll be ready to discuss tomorrow's agenda or whether you need this evening to coordinate. EU?
Thank you, Chair. We will be ready to give our opinion, to express our opinion tomorrow.
Thank you, EU. I think with that we have completed everything we needed to complete by this point in the meeting. There will be a number of CRPs coming out today and this evening, so we will begin tomorrow morning with the CRPs once we've taken the normal reports from the working group. So if I could encourage you all to spend time either in the remaining working groups or failing that to read over the CRPs in detail this evening so that we are ready to begin straight into the CRPs tomorrow. We'll then come on to the agenda for the rest of the morning, and we hope to conclude by lunchtime tomorrow as far as we can. There may still be some small amount of remaining work running over into Saturday morning, but that has to be a very short session to conclude any remaining CRPs at that point. Before we close, can I go to Secretariat, please?
Gracias, señor presidente. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to announce the meetings which will be taking place once the meeting finishes. The Bureau will meet at 6:15. The working group on the budget will also meet. The working group on cross-cutting issues will discuss climate change. The working group on terrestrial animals will discuss jaguar and cami. The aquatic group will also meet this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. That concludes our work for today. There will be a Bureau meeting this evening. If we could go for 6 o'clock, please, in the same room as previously, that would be excellent. So Bureau meeting at 6 o'clock. Can I thank you all for your input today? I think we've made major contributions to the conservation of migratory species in our work so far in the listings and in the other items that we dealt with today as well. So thank you for that. Can I once again thank the interpreters? And we will reconvene tomorrow morning at 9:30 sharp. Thank you very much.